Okay, everybody, let's just move on to Chapter 2, Key Issue 3. Why do some places face health challenges? What you're looking at here is infant mortality rates. These are the best places in the world: Norway, Sweden, Finland, no surprise. When you have access to a free healthcare system, the infant mortality rates can be significantly lower. We're at 5.8. We're not bad, but again, it's all about access to healthcare. We don't have the best access. If you want to look at it by state, no surprise, the South really has the worst infant mortality rates. Again, it's access to healthcare and whether or not you can afford the healthcare. New England and the West have the best rates. Paid maternal leave, remember, this is significant. This will increase the likelihood that your IMR will actually go down. It also improves the safety of women after healthcare. We're the only developed country in the world that's not forced by the federal government. You can get it usually through your healthcare provider, but again, they're not required to give it to you by law, where most of the world it is required by law that women get paid maternal leave. If you look at some of those countries in Europe, 26 weeks or more, that's 6 months, that they were guaranteed to stay home and get their job back when they're done. Again, this is about women's reproductive health and longer and better and healthier lifestyles for women as well. The population pyramids, remember this, the most important factor in the shape of your pyramid is the crude birth rate. And as we look at these things, we're worried about the dependency ratio. Basically, those three age groups of 0 to 14, 15 to 64, and 65 and over. Remember, the dependency ratio is basically you guys, the kids, added together with your grandparents. And we compare those two groups when added together to my group in the middle. And you basically want a 50-50 split. If you can get a 50-50 split, your economy's good and you've got enough taxpayers to pay for schools and Social Security and health care. The problem is LDCs typically don't have that split. They have 80% dependents, mostly kids, as you can see in Cape Verde, and only 20% of the workforce are contributing to their needs. A lot of MDCs, again, are about even 40-60, which is great, which is kind of like Denmark right here. Only issue with Denmark is they're probably going to run into some issues when that middle group begins to retire, but we'll see what happens there. So obviously, Cape Verde is a stage 2 country. They're a pyramid. Chile is a stage 3. It's more of a house. Denmark is more of a stage 4. And it's only because the top is wider. As you can see in Denmark, people are living longer. In Chile, in a stage 3 country, they haven't had the good health care for as long as Denmark has had it. And so that's why their top of their house isn't very big. Economically, this is a huge issue. It all comes down to the ratio of workers to your dependents. If you have a strong dependency ratio, you are strong economically, and it also means you have a large workforce of women. If you have a high CBR and you have a wide base, you're probably not allowing women or encouraging women to stay in school and get into the workforce, and that's why you see pyramids look like Cape Verde. These were just some of the ones that were in your textbook that we kind of talked about from various cities around the country. Remember, if you see one like Lawrence, Kansas, that's a college town. Unalaska, Alaska, a lot of men, it's a military base, and so forth. Issue 4, why might population increase in the future? Remember Thomas Malthus. He predicted population increases geometrically and food supply increases arithmetically. Here's the problem, he wasn't right. He didn't anticipate a green revolution. So his theory is there on the left graph. Population would begin to skyrocket, but the resources and food supply would not be able to keep up. I call this the Jeffrey genius theory because the more people you have, the more geniuses you have and smart people you have, and they begin to solve all of our problems. As you can see on the graph on the right, India, after the Green Revolution hit them with better herbicides and pesticides and irrigation systems, tractors, whatever you want to call it, once those began to diffuse to LDCs, they began to get increased food supply, and they were able to keep up with the population growth. Biggest problem? Well, resources aren't always shared totally equally. Obviously, we're a big burner of fossil fuels. That's not going to help as countries become more developed, as we begin to hoard all the oil and coal and natural gas. We've got to obviously start moving to more renewable resources. But again, according to his theory, he was not all that accurate. He didn't anticipate a green revolution with increased technology. This one's a little interesting in this day and age. The embryologic transition just matches up with the 4 to 5 stages of the demographic transition. So if you held them side by side, and you looked at stage 1 of the demographic transition and looked at the CDR line, these were the leading causes of deaths. So for example, stage 1, infectious parasitic diseases, accidents, natural checks, black plague, cholera, famine. Remember, stage 1, there is no health care, there's no constant food supply. That's why you begin to see CDRs because of those. Stage 2, receding pandemics improved health and sanitation, reduced plagues. Again, this is when the medical revolution begins to kick in. Sanitation is better, which obviously spreads disease. So you begin to see those disease-type deaths begin to decline because we're healthier now, we're increasing vaccinations and so forth. That's mostly Africa. Stage 3, loss of infectious diseases, increase in chronic disorders like aging. Because those stage 3 countries are now living longer, you begin to see people who are now getting older and dying of heart disease and things like that. And that's really where it kicks into stage 4, cardiovascular, obesity, and cancer. These longer life expectancies, we see different types of deaths, heart disease, things like that because of poor diet, bad foods. And cancer, obviously, you get those in much later in life. And stage 4 countries are obviously living longer. Possible stage 5, reemergence of disease. Yes. Antibiotic-resistant diseases and parasites, they've evolved. There are no vaccinations and cures for them. Look at the current situation. The other problem with this is poverty, money for healthcare. They can't afford to make vaccinations and cures for things, and they depend on us to make them for them. And so those countries will probably be hurt the most. As we're seeing right now, improved travel obviously is a huge issue with this. Bird flu, AIDS, COVID-19, these things are spreading much quicker because of the travel that is going around that started in China. Hopefully we get out of stage 5 pretty quick. China, to keep in mind, please remember they have a one-child policy, or at least they had one. It was basically they recognized they had a problem. They had too many kids. So they restricted births to 1 child per family. You basically had to go get a permit to get that child. They've since allowed China to have more kids. They realize they've now got the problem under control. They've been paying attention to geography class, and you basically need a total fertility rate of 2.1. But it essentially brought things back in check. Remember, they've got 1.4 billion people. So it wasn't the best idea, but at least they recognized they had a problem. What causes CBR to decrease? Remember, this is really the whole gist of the chapter. Education and healthcare. Women empowered, higher investment in each child, social service programs for those kids, better family planning for women, and that's the second bullet. Make it accessible to women, give them the power, let them go to school, let them go to work, and obviously you'll begin to see a decrease in CBR. As long as women aren't involved, you will never see a decrease in CBR rates. Okay, here are the questions. I'll let you pull this up on Canvas, and you can use these and answer the questions as best you can. I think this one's got a lot. I think this PowerPoint is over 100 slides or something. Have fun. Talk to you soon.